Located in the center of the state, equidistant between Minneapolis and Duluth. Located in the land of 10,000 lakes and beautiful northern greenery. But just beside these quiet and serene surroundings sits a strip of asphalt 1/4 of a mile in length. It beckons to the men and women who have gathered here today at the Brainerd International Raceway for championship drag racing. Association's North Star Nationals, and as you can see, the area is a beehive of activity awaiting the start of today's event. We'll be featuring the professional competition in the Top Fuel, Funny Car, and Pro Stock drag racing. Hi, I'm Ed Bruce. 2 years ago, we were fortunate to be able to bring you all the action from the North Stars, and we're happy to be back here. I know my pals Brock Yates and Steve Evans are glad to be here, so let's go to them for their thoughts on today's action. Brock?
Oh, you're right, Ed. It sure is beautiful here in Minnesota, but it's a little bit on the chilly side. The fans are showing up by the thousands, but most of them are wearing their woolies. But that hasn't slowed down the competition a bit. So far in the funny car ranks, this man, John Collins, is gathering all the headlines. Not only did he set low ET in qualifying, but he disposed of little John Lombardo in the famous Blue Max in the first round of competition. John Collins, on a roll. Remember, he's never won a major NHRA contest. But that's not the only surprise we've had here. So let's go down to the starting line with the Top Fuel ranks to my pal, Steve Evans.
Brock, no one, including the man himself, can remember the last time Connie Coletta was the #1 qualifier in Top Fuel. But he is here at Brainerd, a track record 5.55 seconds clocking. Connie is strapped in and ready to race. The very first race of the day, Big Daddy Don Garlits. And Connie, it's got to be a refreshing change to go up against Garlits with you really as the favorite.
I can't hear you. Say again, Steve.
Connie, it's got to be a nice change to be the favorite against that black car, that old nemesis of yours.
Well, it's hard to take and judge what he can do. He can pull it out of the bag. He's the smartest one in this game right now, and he can do it.
Now, the weather's changed a lot since you qualified. It's much colder. Is the track going to take that kind of horsepower?
I hope so. I'm worried about it in the mid-range. Friday, I was spinning the tires at the other end of the race course, and we put more wing in it to try and stop it. We'll have to see what happens.
But knowing you, you're going to the starting line with everything you got in your arsenal.
It's ready.
All right. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready.
Good, because I've always wanted to say this. Gentlemen, start your engines.
Sound just like Tony Hallman, Evans. What a terrific job you're doing. All right. 3,000 horsepower lights up behind Connie Coletta, and also Big Daddy's giant Dodge-powered tractor. That comes to life as well. So we've got a couple of old rivals about ready to kick things up. These guys date back to the 1950s. His competitors, Connie Coletta, now in the flying business as well as running his drag racing operation. Don Garlits running his beautiful drag racing museum down in Ocala, Florida. A couple of guys, though, that would rather not be anyplace else but here, right on a drag strip.
You got it, Brock. And I'll tell you, Connie Coletta just shocked everybody in the opening day of qualifying. 5:45, 264 miles an hour. Both track records by a Minnesota mile.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of expected Connie to show up at these big national events, but not to really take things too seriously. For a while, he and Scott, his son, showed up with a couple of cars, had a lot of fun, but really didn't seem to be into the program 100%.
And he comes off a win in Denver, Colorado at the Mile High Nationals. Don Garlits has won 4 national events this year, topped the 265-mile-an-hour mark. The competition, Brock wishes he had stayed retired in that museum.
Well, the man they just called Big is now facing a very much revitalized Connie Coletta. An automobile now from Ypsilanti, Michigan, that is just blowing him away. Quick time here so far. So Garlits is not going to take Connie Coletta lightly. He never really has. They're very, very respected friends, mutually respected. But yeah, over the years, Garlits has had the best of it.
Connie Coletta is doing something that not all the Top Fuel drivers are doing, not even Garlits. He's got 2 fuel pumps bolted to the front of that motor. So he really has double the fuel supply he can use any way he wants. And as we've talked before in so many of our telecasts, the fuel systems are really the heart of these motors as far as the performance is concerned. And look at this. It is Coletta away first. It is Coletta running away from Don Garlits. And in case anybody thought his qualifying times were a fluke, 5:45, 264 miles an hour.
Wow. And a very presentable time by Garlits, 5:57, 2:59. So he didn't lay down and die in the face of Connie Coletta's operation, but nonetheless, a monster pass by Connie Coletta to take this first round.
Now, Garlits' numbers there, Brock, you're so right, would win 80% of the drag races you get caught up in, but not when someone like Connie Coletta runs a 5:45. Let's go to Brock at the end of the track with Connie.
5:45, 2:64. Did it feel anything like that?
It felt strong. It really did, Brock. That's the quickest and the fastest run that I've ever made.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you beat the old man to boot.
I couldn't do it any better in better time, could I?
You're just super sharp all the way. The car's just been running fantastic, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've got the fuel system squared away, and it's been a dynamite act.
Well, our congratulations. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Good job. Well, is that man happy? You bet. Son Scott, first to grab him. A whole big celebration going on down here on the drag strip as Connie Kalitta unwinds after a terrific pass to light things up here at Brainerd. Okay, let's go to Steve with the loser.
Well, very seldom do you ever see Big Daddy Don Garlits go out in round number 1, but he laid a heck of a number on you, 5:45.
That's what Herb just said, 5:45, 2:64. The car ran real good, you could tell. Mine was running good, but his run a lot better.
Connie, before the race, said he was a little worried about the middle of the racetrack. Were you maybe lightened it up a little bit there?
Well, we were concerned with this track. We've smoked our tires almost every run, had a little smoke that time, but not enough to make any difference.
But still doing very well in the World Championship.
Yeah, I hope so.
Don Garlits is out in round number 1, but what a number Connie Kalitta laid on him, 264 miles an hour.
Well, how's that for a kickoff to the Quaker State North Star Nationals? But that's just the beginning. We'll be back. Stick around. Lots more to come.
Cloudy and a bit cold here in Brainerd, Minnesota, but the drag racing action at the Quaker State North Star Nationals is enough to keep you nice and warm. It has just been unbelievable. We've already seen Connie Kalitta dispose of Big Daddy Don Garlits. Now it is Gary Beck, two-time world champion, world record holder for elapsed time, up against Bill Mullins, the man who robbed Beck of the Spring Nationals title just a few weeks ago in Columbus, Ohio.
Do you think Gary Beck is out for revenge? Watch this, boy. It looks as if he sorted himself out after a long dry spell up to the recent Spring Nationals, so Beck has become a major factor once again. Bill Mullins, well, he has turned that Kerry car into a real contender, Steve.
And you got to know that the competition hopes Gary Beck never again finds that system that took him to 530s and 540s from him in California. Now, Bill Mullins of Pelham, Alabama, his first year in Top Fuel after 2 decades in the sportsman classes. Now, the car owner, John Gary, he treats this thing like a shotgun. You put a shell in it, fire it, throw it away, and put another one in. We have seen 3 tremendous engine explosions out of this team, but this was the worst yet. It happened in qualifying right here at the Quaker State North Star Nationals. Now, that is one damaged engine. Fire coming out of every pore, and enough fire, even with the engine in the back. I got a feeling Bill Mullins knew that he had flicked his Beck. We'll take a look at it from another angle. Have it coming right into your living room. You can turn down the thermostat. Old Bill had to be wondering at this point, how long does it take to burn up 12 quarts of 60-weight drag racing motor oil? Fortunately for him, it didn't burn the parachute off and cause some stopping problems. Brock was there waiting for him.
So one of the things about drag racing is that you can never tell when you get a fire like that what the extent of the damage is. Have you had a chance to take a look?
I think we kicked a rod out right close to the end of the track. I had some flame coming in the front of the car up there where I was and got my hand a little bit, but I don't know what caused it, but just I think kicked a rod out and caught some oil on fire.
You're okay, though?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well. In a situation like that, obviously the motor stops running right, but can you tell that you got any kind of fire back there?
I couldn't tell I had any fire back there until it started coming in the cockpit a little bit, but the vibration, you know, I knew something was wrong.
Yeah. Well, you got her gathered up and stopped, so I'll let you get back and get to work.
Thanks for the good help on the safety safari there.
And amen to that, Bill Mullins. There's none better than NHRA's emergency teams. In fact, you see one of them there in the background. Well, the John Kerry crew, along with Bill Mullins, they all pitched in, worked all night, and got a motor back together that sounds just as good as any they've had, and it is in the far lane, getting ready to go up against Gary Beck.
Well, as we said, a rematch of the Spring Nationals finals when Bill Mullins blew out Gary Beck with a very strong run. So we'll see if revenge is sweet for Gary Beck or if the streak continues for Bill Mullins. A couple of seasoned professionals. These guys are probably not going to make any mistakes. Somebody is going to have to beat somebody else. You're not going to have to rely on a red light in this kind of competition.
And you know what constantly amazes me? The Gary Beck, Larry Minor team, they have got two 18-wheelers full of engines and parts and pieces. The John Kerry group, well, they've got an old pull-along kind of beat-up trailer, and I always wonder where they come up with the resources to put that thing back together as much as they blow it up. And I'll tell you, it sounds good. There's not a wisp of smoke coming out of any of the pipes on Bill Mullen's car, or Gary Beck's for that matter. So now the delicate staging process begins. They inch forward. The top yellow light of the Christmas tree, the pre-stage. It's just to help the drivers. When both those top yellow lights are on, they're ready. The starter buster couch sends them on their way. On the Christmas tree, a yellow light, 4/10 of a second later, the green. Set and ready, Gary Beck. His front wheels closest to you. They leap right together. A gorgeous start. Smoke in the tires a little bit is Bill Mullins. Mullins had too much horsepower. Gary Beck wins it by about an inch. A 567, 246 miles an hour, and it was that little loss of traction that spelled defeat for Bill Mullins. So Gary Beck got to be smiling a little bit, thinking, "Oh, partner, I owed you one." Let's look at it again. The lead, well, you call him. No obvious advantage to either driver. Now watch the rear slicks on the car in the far lane. When they start to smoke, and you can bet Bill Mullins felt that, probably got off the throttle just a little bit, and that is what cost him the race. Just a simple and slight loss of traction. Oh my, try to call this one. What a drag race. Gary Beck defeats Bill Mullins, and down at the end of the racetrack, a happy Gary.
Well, Gary Beck is one of those deals that you never know who wins the thing until somebody comes up and tell you, and that's kind of good news. It was very close, though, went all the way.
It was extremely close. I didn't see Bill the first half of the track, and then he pulled up on me, and actually I pulled away from him a little bit, and then right in the lights he went right by me real fast. So I really didn't know.
Well, it was only a couple of 100ths, but anything counts. And how about the racetrack? It seems like you got a little bit of crosswind, especially in the lights. Is that bothering you at all?
Well, not really. The cars are not too bad. It's a good racetrack here, and I like coming up here. And it's we got a very cold afternoon, and we're just getting started. So the track's probably, the surface temperature is not really up real good yet, but we don't have all the power we used to have anyway, so it's good for us.
Well, good. Congratulations. We'll see you later.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Gary Beck heads to the second round, but Bill Mullins, he's through for the day.
Well, Bill, I don't know about you, but Gary Beck didn't know who won.
I didn't either. I thought we had won, but apparently I passed him right past the finish line.
That's exactly what he said, maybe inches past the finish line. It's been a long, tough weekend for you guys, but still performed very well, even after exploding that motor in qualifying.
We've had bad luck. Even the awning fell on the car while we were working.
The generator fell on the car?
No, the awning fell, collapsed on the car. Yeah, everything's happened. We've had some bad luck, but we'll turn it around.
I'm sure you will. Bill Mullins goes out in round one to Gary Beck, but how close it was.
So the cool weather here in Minnesota does not agree with the Spring Nationals winner. We'll be back with more from the Quaker State North Star Nationals following them.
On Top Fuel Eliminator action here at the NHRA Quaker State North Star Nationals. I'm Steve Evans along with Brock Yates and Ed Bruce. And our next pair, well, they're firing up right now. It'll be the youngster in his early 20s from Miami, Florida, Darrell Gwynn, versus a man at least twice his age, and that is Gene Snow, the snowman from Fort Worth, Texas.
Well, I'll tell you what, Steve, we got a whole bunch of senior citizens on Top Fuel ranks. When you think about Garlitz and Mullins, both over 50, Coletta, Snow, a whole bunch of them in their 40s, been around for years and years and years. And here comes the kid, Darrell Gwynn. He moved the median age down a little bit, but only by a few months.
I'll tell you, but they do respect that kid. Just ask Gene Snow, he'll tell you. In fact, I think if the kid and his family hadn't built their own Top Fuel car after retiring from the alcohol dragster race, that one of the teams would have hired Gwynn as a pure driver. He won the world championship in alcohol dragster racing, and I'll tell you, those races are more often than not decided by the driver. So that young man, no one's taken him lightly. He's already made one final round where he's defeated by Don Garlitz in New Jersey at the Summer Nationals.
Well, a very cool head as well. And speaking of cool, Gene Snow brings that car that he calls Black Gold up to the line. Gene Snow, as we've said so many times before, a real pioneer in drag racing.
Indeed, he has been called the father of the funny car, and I would have to agree with that. He raced professionally for a living for a long, long time. Got a big enough stake to go back to his home state of Texas and poke a few holes in the ground, and up came the Bubbling Crude.
Well, you can be sure that Gene Snow is not a whole lot worried about the prize money he'll take home. He'll pay the bills no matter what. Darrell Gwynn, a little bit different matter. That's a family affair. They are racing for the money. This is a career for Darrell all the way.
No one's more serious about his drag racing than 21-year-old Florida native Darrell Gwynn. But he and his family also like to have a good time as they're out trying to win these championships. The Miami Vice connotation here has nothing to do with Crockett and Tubbs blowing away the bad guys in South Florida, but rather with Darrell's dream of squeezing out the competition. He's got Joe Amato here fleeing in his little red suit, a part flying off of Gary Ormsby's car. Gary Beck bites the bullet here, and Connie Coletta trying to escape in one of his jets. And the blower coming off of Dick LaHaye's car, a valve cover. That's not unusual, actually, blown off of Bill Mullen's car. Gene Snow represented Don Garlits, Frank Bradley, and I asked her, have you actually beat all these guys? He said, well, no, not yet. A few of them could be X'd off, but maybe all of them by the end of the season.
Well, I'll tell you what, Steve, talk about a cartoonist being on the leading edge. Who else gets his artwork stuck on the nose of a 250-mile-an-hour dragster?
Well, this is going to be a good race, I have a feeling. Darrell Gwynn just full of confidence that only the young can possess. Gene Snow over there, and don't get the idea, anyone, that he takes this sport casually. Gene Snow is out there running as quick and as fast as he possibly can, built a brand new car for this year, and hopes to win his first ever NHRA Top Fuel title this season. Now, he's got a whole mantle full of running car trophies, but has still not got the deep down in Top Fuel.
Darrell Gwynn looking so confident as we see one of his crewmen strap down that blower strap. That is an NHRA regulation. If a blower does go off the top of the motor, those straps will hold it down, or at least theoretically hold it down, and prevent the debris from getting into the stands or hurting some bystander.
Well, apparently one of the pins had slipped out of what they call the restraint straps, and the eagle eye, one of those crewmen, caught it and put it on. They could have been shut off at a starting line, actually, technically by the starter, if those straps were not in place. There's Gene Snow, engine coming up to temperature, just burning up that nitromethane, 10-12 gallons a run. They are off right together. Whoa! And the blower explodes on Darrell Gwynn's car. The first time that young man has experienced that almost atomic bomb-like explosion. And this was a bad one. This will hurt that team, Brock. To lose that fuel system and supercharger could put them back.
What a shame. It was a good start for both drivers. Off the line almost together, and instantly the blower goes.
Let's see if we can ascertain exactly what it happened. Oh, you don't have any trouble finding that one, do you? Now, there's little parts and pieces all over the drag strip, but the bulk of the blower and the injector are retained on the car by those straps. Here we see it from another angle. Kaboom! Just cleans it right off, and I'm sure Darrell's ears are ringing.
Well, a thoroughly disappointed Darrell Gwynn. Darrell, this is a pretty rare incident for you.
Yes, it is. I've never even done this with my alcohol car. Seems apparent that the rear end broke, because we had it plenty safe for this first round, and I couldn't imagine what had happened. I mean,
so the rear end broke and they just free wound the engine and the blower went?
Right. It was in the middle of tire shake, and I think the tire shake had a lot to do with the rear end breaking, because it shook really violent. Boy, we just checked the rear yesterday too. That shake does a lot to these cars.
Oh, I can imagine. The wind or the low temperatures don't think had any effect on it. It was just something could have happened on any racetrack.
Yeah, we were ready for today. It's just one of them things. We felt pretty good going to this race. We run better, more consistent than anybody here. We felt really good about winning the race, but the bugs got us.
Yeah, well, I guess that's what this sport's all about, isn't it? You can never get rid of the bugs.
It's true. We'll be there at Indyville next week.
Good job so far. We'll see you next week, couple weeks.
Very much.
Well, that's a down young man that was talking to Brock Yates. He's staring at about $2,200 worth of damage. And on their racing budget, that puts a pretty good dent in it. Well, you can already hear them back at the starting line. The next pair of Top Fuel dragsters are fired and ready. And, Brock, we have got the defending world champion, Joe Amato. He'll be going up against the always tough Gary Ormsby.
Yeah, Steve, and neither one of these guys face any real budgetary restraints. These are two of the best funded teams in Top Fuel competition. Joe Amato, of course, a guy who we know well as being in the big parts distribution business in Pennsylvania, and a very prosperous young man, done a good job. Ormsby, on the other hand, done very well in the car business in California.
But while Ormsby was working his way up in the car business, he paid his dues racing on a shoestring. Look at the steam coming out of the back of that car, Brock. That engine is mighty hot. It doesn't look to be oil smoke. It looks more to be steam out of the motor. Of course, we're dealing in a very cold day. If the temperature were warmer, timer, you might not even see that steam.
It could be. These cars, they won't notice the drivers are taking their time about staging because engine temperature is very critical here, and it is very slow to come up.
It is Gary Ormsby off the mark first. Ormsby smokes his tires just slightly, gets back on the throttle. Here comes Amato. It's not enough. Both of them burn their motors up. Ormsby is on fire. That'll go out, I think, rather quickly. Looks more like a header fire than anything else. Ormsby won it on a whole shot. He ran 5:57 to Amato's 5:54. So the slower of the two cars wins the drag race, and that's because the lanes are independently timed. The clocks don't start till the front wheels move. And speaking of front wheels, look at Ormsby just dance him on the pavement. That is a perfect balance between power and clutch. He also did a very good job when the tires started to smoke of just lifting enough for that smoke to dry up. And at the finish line at this point, I don't think either driver knew who was going to win this. They may not have known when they got down to Brock Yates. This is the closest race of the day. Ormsby wins it on driving.
It was a real tight race all the way. You just nipped him in the lights, huh?
Yeah, I wasn't real sure if I'd won or not. You know, it was that close.
Well, do you reckon you hurt it real bad, or?
Well, don't look too good, but we got more engines in the trailer, so that's the main thing. We'll be ready for the next round.
Good deal. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So that completes the first round of Top Fuel. In the semifinals, it'll be Connie Coletta on a roll versus that man, Gary Ormsby. It will also be Gary Beck versus Gene Snow, and Snow has the lane choice there. Let's go to Ed Bruce.
NHRA drag racing has been described in many ways. We all know it's fast and exciting, but it can be unpredictable too. Just when you think you see the winning car, something unexpected pops up. Let's take a look at an example of this unpredictability from a couple of years back. It was the Top Fuel final round action, matching Joe Amato in the near lane against Doug Kerhulis in the far lane. Both drivers had completed their burnouts and were in the lights awaiting the start. Right from the start, Amato smoked the tires, giving a big advantage to Kerhulis. Kerhulis was out in front with Amato trailing. Then suddenly, at mid-track, there was smoke from Kerhulis' engine, and Joe Amato pulled into the lead and took the North Stars title. Joe Amato's victory, another one to chalk up to the unpredictability of NHRA drag racing.
That's right, Ed. Just the slightest little thing in this sport can beat you. There's no second chances. We'll be back with the second round of those tires.
The towel you're looking at is not just randomly thrown inside the chassis of Kenny Bernstein's funny car. That is a mystery towel. Nobody quite knows what's underneath it. He has used, as you well know, a lot of computer science to make that car go quickly, but he's shown up at recent events with a little device covered up by that towel. In order to find out about it, we sent our ace investigative reporter to Bernstein's pit.
Well, first everyone said that this computer on board Kenny Bernstein's car was the secret to he and Dale Armstrong's success. Well, now they'll sell you this computer for about $1,500. That tells me maybe they've got something better. Now then, they said it was the aerodynamic body. That was the secret. Well, if you want one of those, just write a check for $2,400. They'll sell you a duplicate body. The big question now is, how soon can you buy whatever is under that white towel? There's technology there that they are not revealing, as we've seen today. There's a crewman assigned to cover up whatever is under there immediately once the body comes up. And we can't see it. I guarantee you that if you were to touch that towel, well, you'd be in the emergency hospital with a broken wrist.
Well, we can report that Evans escaped from the Bernstein pit unscathed, but the mystery remains as we watch Bernstein back into line. Kenny Bernstein, what an entrepreneur. Not only has been an ace drag racer, but made a lot of money in the restaurant business too, Steve.
Al Segrini has won quite a few NHRA national events, now driving the car of Joe Paisano from Southern California. And Brock, this is powered by a little different kind of an engine. In fact, Paisano designed it. It's called a JP1. That's the cylinder block. And Garlits is running one. A number of the famed teams are investigating that engine, if not already running it. So that's another innovation for this season. And they are off right together. Carrying the front wheels is Al Segrini. Segrini was away first, but it is not enough. Oh, Segrini gave Bernstein everything he had. But Kenny wins it at 577, 242 miles an hour to Al Segrini's 588.
Well, he had all he wanted from Al Segrini and the JP1 motor in Paisano's car. But Bernstein, once again, driving with that uncanny steadiness that he has exhibited in recent months, just doesn't seem to make any mistakes. The car doesn't go sideways. It doesn't smoke its tires. He just drills it down the drag strip every time. Got to be a source of major frustration for guys like Segrini, but a source of delight for Kenny Bernstein.
Well, Kenny, a 5.77. You're still the quickest car in eliminations, but again, a little bit of smoke there in the lights. You don't like that?
No, it's still hurting itself down here. We got a #1 cylinder that's been eating on us now for 3 days, and it likes aluminum, it seems like, but Dale keeps stepping up, and you've seen the times coming down. Once we get it to where it'll live, it'll run, I think, a little quicker, but very happy for that one.
So the situation now is you go back and put a couple of pistons in at minimum. Huh?
Well, we go back and take that #1. I'm sure it's hurt again, fix it, and he'll richen that cylinder a little more, and he's just trying to catch up and get enough fuel in there and so that the air doesn't overpower it.
Well, $50 pistons are really a cheap price to get those one lights.
Well, it is. You'll take those every day.
Kenny Bernstein goes into the semis.
And there's the man from the Holiday Inn with a towel going over the secret device up front there. Someday we'll find out about it. We may have to send Evans back to the pits, though, one more time. Okay, here is Paul Smith at the wheel of Fred Castronovo's funny car from upstate New York. He is going to go against the hometown favorite.
And that, of course, Brock, is Tom Hoover from Minneapolis, the old pro. I got to tell you, Paul Smith is one of my favorites in this sport. He has been racing forever, his own cars, other people's cars. He's never made a dime in this business, but he just stays in it because he loves it so much. Someday, he just dreams he'll win that big one in the sky from Florida. Well, in the first round earlier today, Tom Hoover got by Dale Foley, but not before there was a lot of excitement. Watch the yellow Buick Somerset Regal in the near lane. Dale Foley from California. Remember, this was earlier today. Foley, one of the hottest cars in the country, a great lead, the wheels in the air, and all of a sudden, a blower explosion just about rips the car in half. Blower explosions, as you've seen, usually happen further down the racetrack. How about this? The entire car just contorts. The body almost flew right off the car backwards. Brock was there.
Dale, obviously a big one. Are you all right?
Oh, I'm fine. Good safety equipment. That's it.
You know, I think maybe a lot of viewers would wonder about a situation like this. Does the driver get any warning at all? Anything that, even a sixth sense, it'll tell you that the blower's about to go?
Well, no, the engine RPM went up just a little faster than what I could catch it, and it probably just held an intake valve open longer than it needed to, or hit a piston or something crazy like that. It was just one of those split-second deals.
Yeah, microsecond, and no saving it.
No, we'll be back.
Good. Well, we're sorry it ended like this.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry.
You heard Dale say that the engine just went up too high and hung an intake valve. Well, that's exactly what happened to Darrell Gwynn earlier in Top Fuel when the rear end broke and allowed that motor to freewheel. Same set of circumstances, but with a funny car, a lot more damage because it gets the body, the windshield, the whole 9 yards. Well, here we go. Tom Hoover, just about ready. He's in the far lane. In the near lane, the scrappy little guy from Florida, Paul Smith. But what a beautiful car, Brock. Phil Castronova and his brother Fred up in upstate New York, they specialize in exotic body repairs, Ferraris, Lamborghinis. What a beautiful, beautiful car. And what a beautiful, beautiful run for Paul Smith. He is going into the semifinals. Huh, a 580. That might even be a career best for Paul Smith at 240 miles an hour. Tom Hoover on the short end of the stick at 6:12.208. We'll be back to Brainerd, Minnesota for more funny car action right after this. Stay with us.
On one of the 10,000 lakes up here in northern Minnesota. It's mighty cool. Believe me, no swimmers on the dock today. But believe me, also, the competition is plenty hot at Brainerd as we get ready for more funny car competition in the Quaker State North Star National. And that is a familiar car, Steve, and a real quick one as well.
I'm so glad to see John Collins perform as he has here this weekend. It's been a long time coming. He is the #1 qualifier. That car right there just burning the hides did it to him in qualifying. But race day is something else. It has cooled off about 25 degrees, I think, since qualifying. John Collins, who lives in Claremore, Oklahoma, on the family spread where they raise cutting horses. Tim Gross, well, he lives in Saugus, California, a rural part just north of Los Angeles. And Tim, with a new sponsor and a new car for this season, looking for big things. With the hatch open, and certainly not to get any fresh air, it's really cold it out, but to let some of the smoke out after that burnout. So Tim Grossbrock, he's a scrappy customer. This could be an interesting race.
Very highly keyed young man, really competitive. John Collins, on the other hand, very laid back kind of guy. He doesn't seem to exhibit a lot of that intensity, but believe me, you've got to be intense to climb into the cockpit of one of these rockets.
I tell you, they shake, they rattle, they try to roll, they try to blow, they try to fight you.
They really do. They're about as nasty a machine as man has created yet, and it takes a whole lot of braves to climb into one of them. Tim Gross, full-time touring professional, as you said, got himself some serious sponsorship money, competed for a long time, really on his own dollar, and didn't have the resources to do the job that he wanted to.
And survived one of the most incredible crashes we've ever seen in funny car racing a few years ago at Columbus, Ohio. Walked away, in fact. But that's all in the past. What is important right now is this two-car drag race, because only one comes back. They're Rennie Collins finally getting staged, and it's Gross away first. Tim Gross with a bit of an advantage. Here comes Collins. It is John Collins. What a race. A 587 to a 590. When you consider Gross was off the mark first, it was almost a dead heat.
Well, it looked like it was Tim Gross really all the way. He left a little bit ahead of John Collins. The cars really were very even. It was a good, strong pass by both drivers, but it looked like it was Gross. It was good. There's a little bobble on Gross's part right there, and that may have spelled the difference, because it was a strong top-end charge by John Collins that pulled it out at the last second.
Well, John Collins, they don't get a lot closer than that one.
Boy, Steve, it was, you know, going right into the lights, I could still see the nose of Tim's car. I knew that I beat him, but I knew it was inches or maybe a foot, maybe 2 feet. It was real close.
Well, they're having to put some grease sweep down in your lane, so you may have paid the price.
No, I definitely hurt the engine on that run. I don't know why. Something's, you know, we definitely have something that's the matter with it.
Well, it's got to concern you slipping from those low 570s now to the high 580s.
Well, the first run, we got out of the groove. That run, something was wrong with the engine. I really couldn't tell you at this point.
Well, I'm sure the crew will figure out what it is and have it fixed for the semifinals, because John Collins is there. Brock?
Well, Tim, it just couldn't have been a whole lot closer. You just guys were bumper to bumper all the way through the lights, really.
Yeah, I didn't really see what had gone on the starting line, let's say, as far as how we left together, but I know that I didn't see him until actually the car went through a severe vibration. This lane, I've been running this lane almost every single pass that we've made here, and I've been having lots of troubles with it about 100 feet out or so. And it shook for probably 300-400 feet down the racetrack and almost knocked me out, and that's when he moved up maybe just a quarter of a fender.
You saw a little smoke out of John's car?
We're so close side by side and all that. I kind of looked over at him. I tried to get a glance at my gauges and all that, and I couldn't see it through the shake. Nice going. And I just happened to look over at him just to see how close it was, and so I didn't take my foot out of it until the very end.
Well, a great race and a great show. We're sorry you lost.
Thanks, Mike, very much.
You'll notice how up they are, even if they lose, when the race is that close. Tim Gross trying to exercise out the aches and pains from all of that car shake. And here is Jim Head. Kind of a plain Jane-looking race car. Head doesn't even actively solicit any sponsorship, I don't think, Brock. He's already won the U.S. Nationals last year, the Cajun Nationals this year, and here at the North Star Nationals, he goes up against the quickest funny car in the world, Roland Leon's Hawaiian with Rick Johnson driving.
Well, this is going to be an interesting contrast in styles. Johnson, as you said, very quick on occasion, but the car has been a little inconsistent. Exactly the opposite of the Jim Head machine, which just tends to run down there on kind of a slower version of Kenny Bernstein's automobile. You've got a beat Head. Johnson, he goes all out on every pass. Sometimes fast, sometimes slow. This guy has got a medium all the time.
Oh, yeah, it's like, it's so consistent, it could be what they call a bracket racer in drag racing. It runs between 589 and 599 just about every time it goes down the drag strip. Let's see what happens here. Sideways, losing traction, Rick Johnson. It is Jim Head and a blower explosion right in the lights for Rick Johnson. You wonder if he can even see. Apparently he can. The parachute is out. This is a good long racetrack that leads out onto a road course. You could coast for almost 4 miles here, so stopping is not a problem. Oh, boy, is that got to be frightening, Brock? Oh, Rick Johnson wants out of that car. That'd be kind of like standing in a phone booth when a bomb went off.
Well, I was a little concerned when we saw that thing let go that he hadn't been hurt by some of that flying debris, because when it takes the windshield, the next thing in line is your face. But it looks as if Rick Johnson is all right, and once again, as we described it, Johnson kind of hairy, hard ride over there with the Hawaiian, but look at Head. Just kind of straight lines it right down the old drag strip. Really a textbook driver. Not all that fast. 592, just like you told us, Steve. 588, Johnson, quicker ET, but Head wins it. And then Rick caps what was a really good race and a losing effort, unfortunately, with a blower explosion. He gets away all right, brings the car to a stop, but I'm sure a very shaken young man.
Well, here we see the results of yet another violent blower explosion. You can see the windshield has been ripped out of the Hawaiian. The fuel injector is gone off of the top of the blower. But the good news is this man, Rick Johnson, is okay. You didn't win, unfortunately. I don't think you knew that.
It was really close down there, Steve. I really couldn't tell who won. The explosion came right in the lights, and so it was hard to tell.
Your ears have got to be ringing. I mean, we heard it clear down where we were.
Yeah, I won't be here for a week or two, but that's just part of the business, you know, occupational hazards.
You have no warning of impending danger when that thing goes off, huh?
No, Steve, the engine was real clean. It was making a good move down there. It slid around real bad out in the middle and was clean right in the lights, and all of a sudden, boom.
And for guys like you who work on the car along with the rest of the crew, this is really one of the worst things that can happen other than a fire, because there's just so much repair that has to be done and so expensive.
Yeah, it usually runs around $10,000 to fix a repair like this, and plus going into Indian, we beat our car all up again. It makes it tough on all of us.
Well, our condolences, because it looked like you might have won that without this problem.
It was close. Thank you, Steve.
Well, a very brave young man and a lot of poise in the face of enormous hazard there. Rick Johnson, unfortunately, didn't win that race, but he put on a super show and a great job of driving and bringing the Hawaiian under control in the face of adversity. So the semifinal, Kenny Bernstein versus Jim Head, and Paul Smith versus John Collins.
The funny car crews are thrashing on their machines. The pro stock drivers bringing their cars into the lanes. So right now, we'll go to Ed Bruce.
The last time we were at the North Stars, we saw an extremely close race in the funny car finals. It featured Frank Hawley, the reigning world champion, against Kenny Bernstein, a man who'd been struggling to take a victory. Let's take another look back at that exciting race. It was Kenny Bernstein in the near lane, racing against the two-time reigning world champion, Frank Hawley, in the far lane. Both drivers completed their burnouts and moved into the staging beams. Both men were off to a good start. It appeared that Frank had a slight lead, but Bernstein came on strong at the finish and powered his car onto the wind, running a 5.92 ET at 246 miles per hour. This win sparked renewed vigor for Kenny. Just 2 weeks later, he won a U.S. Nationals crown and then the Big Bud Shootout, winning well over $100,000 in just 2 weeks of racing.
And Ed, over here on the other side of Kenny Bernstein's 18-wheel semi is Dale Armstrong and crew getting the Ford Tempo ready for the semifinals. The consistency of this car has everyone talking, not to mention the terrible towel we talked about earlier. Well, what you see here is pretty much routine maintenance. Not so in the John Collins camp. That is a spare bullet coming out of the trailer going into that funny car. They found some damage, no doubt a hurt crankshaft that will prevent them from running that engine. And boy, Brock Yates, you hate to do this when you've got everything going with you, consistency, low qualifier. All of a sudden, you got to go to an unknown quantity.
Absolutely. He had the combination, and he wasn't going to mess around with it unless something broke, and it did. So in goes another motor. But Collins is so consistent right now, and he seems to be doing things well. His crew is buttoned up and their morale is high, so it may not make all that much difference. But again, though, when you haven't fired one of these babies up, you just don't know what kind of power you're going to make from one.
And I'm sure in the pit area they will indeed start it up, but all that tells you is that, well, it sounds good to me. How does it sound to you? You know, you really don't know until you let the clutch out on the starting line. Speaking of letting the clutch out, no one does it faster than these guys. The RPMs on the starting line up to 8,500. These machines are torturous on their 500 cubic inch engines. They're the pro stock cars, 2,350 pounds with the driver. And here's one of the most famous teams ever, Rear and Morrison with their Camaro. Their new driver, Bruce Allen, has done a sensational job considering he's never driven a pro stock car before. Had lots of time in modifieds and competition eliminator cars. And they do the unique burnout. Holding a line lock, which locks the brakes on the front wheel, they can spin those rear tires stationary until they blister your hand if you touched them.
And they need that, because unless those rubber compounds are really hot, they're not going to get the kind of adhesion that they need to cut some really quick times. So Rear and Morrison have that car. They're specialists in engine design and headwork, and among the very, very best race shops in the business. Bruce Allen, as you say, a long-time drag racer in the sportsman classes, first time in the pro stock ranks. Tony Christian, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, not a regular competitor on the national scene, but a very good driver when he comes.
Now, Christian showed well at the Gator Nationals in Gainesville earlier on. This guy is starting to make some headway in a very tough category. Tony Christian, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, beautiful 84 Firebird in the far lane. Of course, that's a Camaro from Texas in the near lane. Tony Christian cut a beautiful line off the starting line. This could be the upset of the day in pro stock. No, the wind lights say Bruce Allen at 760, 177 miles an hour. Tony Christian ran a 7.72, but was a lot closer to Allen than he should have been, Brock.
He sure was, Steve, and in fact had top speed on Bruce by 180 miles an hour. There you see a little wheel stand on a part of Tony Christian, but he gets it all gathered up and really gives Bruce Allen everything he wanted in that race, and almost a little bit too much.
I'll tell you, keep your eye on the man driving that red car. He's going to go someplace if he sticks with professional drag racing. Anytime you're that close to a Rear-End Morrison, boy, you got a future.
Well, Steve, here are a couple of guys that not only have a future, but a great past as well. This man, the winningest driver in NHRA national competition, Bob Glidden, with 5, count 'em, 5 world championships to his credit. And the other man in that Oldsmobile Calais, a little newer on the circuit, but boy, has he won some races, Steve.
And Warren Johnson, well, this is kind of a homecoming for him. He was born and raised in Minnesota. Bob Glidden, of course, a native, a Hoosier. He's from Whiteland, Indiana. But back to Warren Johnson, a native of Minnesota, who a few years ago moved from Freedley, Minnesota to Duluth, Georgia. And Brock, there were a lot of jokes floating around in the pro stock ranks about how he picked up 3/10 of a second just by moving to stock car country in Georgia.
Well, whatever it is, he's got one of the fastest pro stock cars in the business. This is going to be a race.
What a lead. It looked like one clutch was released. They moved at exactly the same time. It is Glidden. Oh, boy. I'll tell you, the North Star National's not disappointing anybody. That was Bob Glidden's 2 boys, Billy and Rusty, high-fiving it. A 7:57 for Glidden at 183 miles an hour to Johnson, 7:60, 300ths of a second separating them.
Boy, I thought the race between Christian and Allen was close, but wait till you see this one. Notice the crewman of Bob Glidden already jumping up. He's celebrating because Glidden left so well, squeezed the light perfectly, and I think that was what spelled the difference, Steve.
Well, you know, Brock, the officials tell us from the NHRA timing tower the reaction times were identical. So you're seeing a realistic 300ths of a second. That's what it looks like.
So Glidden goes into the final, and he will get lane choice because of that strong run.
Whoa, what a round of pro stock racing. Back in the pit area, this is John Collins' opponent when we get to the semifinals of Funny Car, Paul Smith and the Fred Castronova operation. Looks pretty routine here, but as we have already reported, a new motor going into John Collins' car, and that would probably be a bit of good news for these guys, because so often, Brock, when you put a new engine in, something gets left loose or little things go wrong in the starting line, might open the door for a Paul Smith.
So you can be sure that Castronova and crew will be very careful in the assembly of that engine as they load up the nitro in that forward-mounted fuel tank. That is Bob Kreitz and crew putting the final assembly on John Collins' fresh motor. Remember, he had to change it. They're about done with that job. Bob Kreitz, of course, one of the great characters in this sport, competed his top fuel car for years and can wrench a funny car with the very best. Meanwhile, we've got some news from the staging lanes. The top fuel cars are ready. Connie Colletta's lined up out there for his race with Gary Ormsby, but there's trouble. Steve is there.
Here in the staging lanes, just before the semifinals of Top Fuel, Scott Colletta and the crew working on the lower end of the motor. Connie, is there a problem here? They don't seem to be too excited.
No, we got a small water leak on one of the sleeve registers plates. Sprung a little leak, and we're just putting some more silicone on it and going to pack some rags in it so it doesn't drip on us.
If it does drip, anything you can do to combat it up on the starting line?
Not too much. If it does do it and start to drip, all you got to do is be careful don't get on the tire. It's not going to hurt it going down a racetrack because there's no pressure in the pan anyways, or in the oil, in the water jacket.
Now that you've had a chance to relax a little bit, how did it feel to go 264 miles an hour?
It was a dynamite feeling. I know the car was really trucking down there. I put it in high gear, and I could feel the back tires come up on it. And I said, she's really doing it. And I said, Gar ain't going to get by me this time.
How long have you wanted to do that to him?
Quite a while. He's broke my back here the last year. He come back at Indy, and I mean, he thrashed me several times. So my turn, I hope.
Well, Gary Ormsby, he thinks maybe it's going to be his turn because he'll be going up against Connie Colletta, the man who just went 264 miles an hour. This is going to be a good one. Stick around.
With that power plant, there's a slight crack in the cylinder block that might leak some water out. They made a repair on the car of Connie Colletta. They just hope it holds. Gary Ormsby, on the other hand, he doesn't much care if it holds or not. He would like to beat Connie Kalitta, and that's going to be hard to do. The man from Michigan destroyed Don Garlits in the first round, was the low qualifier. He's got the momentum.
He sure does. He comes in here with a victory in the Mile High Nationals just a short time ago. So Ormsby faces a man who is probably looser and running stronger than I can remember in a long, long time. Connie Kalitta just happy, relaxed, the crew is pleased, and that car, well, 264 miles an hour, what can you say?
Gary Ormsby, Brock, is a fine top fuel driver, but you could not describe him as loose and cool. He's one of those guys that just kind of gets wound up like a rubber band. I don't know if that's good or bad.
Well, whatever it is, it's going to be an interesting confrontation because we've got two very experienced race drivers in two beautifully prepared automobiles. So it's really hard to give an edge to anybody here.
I would tell you, Lee Beard, the crew chief on Gary Ormsby's car, is about as good as there is. And Connie Kalitta, even though he runs that fly-in service, he's got about 14 or 15 jets he's got to dispatch all day long, still finds the time to make the decisions on that motor. He is the crew chief. The kids do what he tells them to do.
Well, so far they've been following instructions to a T because Connie's got that car running about as well as it could run. It seems to like the cool weather. Maybe it's because it's a northern car to begin with. I don't know what it is, but we'll see whether the cool temperatures pay off for Connie. They sure did on that first pass, the quickest of the day, and he was low qualifier coming in here to boot.
The beautiful car of Gary Ormsby from Northern California. Connie Kalitta, Ypsilanti, Michigan. Here we go. Top fuel semis just about underway. Ormsby still inching forward. The last is stage. Ormsby left too soon, Brock. He almost left before the Christmas tree was even activated. Connie Kalitta shuts it off early, doesn't even bother to pull the parachute, and still runs 5:53. Now, maybe Ormsby just figured he had to gamble on the starting line, but I don't know. You don't see that many red lights in top fuel. They just don't usually do it.
No, they don't. It's very rare. We see a lot of them in pro stock, very few of them in top fuel. What's a red light? You leave before the green light comes on, just like at a stoplight, and that disqualifies you. Are instantly out of the competition.
Look at the billowing tire smoke from Gary Beck's burnout. The quickest man in the world. He holds the official NHRA record at 5.39 seconds, but it's been a year or so since he's gotten close to that.
Okay, Gene Snow going up against him. This can be a battle of two very experienced drivers. Snow in the black car nearest you, and the beautiful red and white car of Gary Beck. Let's go to Steve.
Gary Ormsby, after that great leave against Joe Amato in the first round, I know it's got to be a little crushing to red light against Kalitta.
Well, we figured he had us a little bit there, and I did definitely had my mind made up to go for it when I went up there. I was obviously a little early.
You changed motors, so you had some doubt about the tire plant?
We had a little doubt there. We had to change the blower and injectors because it kicked the rod out the last round and got parts up in the top, so we didn't know where we were at the same.
Where those desperate men do desperate things.
That's true.
Well, it didn't pay off for Gary Ormsby this time, but we know he'll be back. A tough break for a very, very tough competitor. All right, back to the starting line. These two pros are just about staged. Snow versus Beck. What do you think, Steve?
I like Gary Beck. If I was a betting man, Brock, I think I'd wager a few bob on Gary Beck. He's had the quicker lap times. He's been running them reasonably consistently ever since the Spring Nationals. You just have to ride with a two-time world champion, that's all.
Well, he's been starting to make a comeback, too, as we've said repeatedly. He had some problems, mostly with his injectors and the fuel mixture, the fuel flow in these very exotic engines. Now seems to have gotten that sorted out. He's staging quite slowly, isn't he?
And there you get a good look at the light sources that come across the racetrack to the photocells that are blocked by the front wheels of these vehicles. That controls the time clock and also a red light if you leave too soon. Gary Beck and Gene Snow. We have got an, oh my Lord! Gary Beck with a moonshot off the starting line. That car almost went over backwards. And to boot, Gary left a red light in his wake. But that's a different kind of red light, Brock. He red lighted because the front wheel came up out of the beam. Watch the front end of that car. Now, there's only a couple of inches up where you've got maybe 6-8 inches of rollout forward. So Beck was not doing an Ormsby. Look at this, giving gravity a bad name.
Wow, look at that. Key rash back onto the ground and back out of it as Gene Snow sails onto an easy victory. Let's have one more look at that. There we go. We have ignition. We have liftoff. Oh, And there, abort the flight, back to Earth. What a ride.
Well, Gary, first came the red light, then some low-level flying.
Yeah, it's the wheels were up pretty, going up. Did I red light?
Yes.
I did, huh? Yeah, there's something going on over there because it doesn't stage properly. Ormsby did the same thing. I was surprised. I was in I saw yellow. I didn't see the red. But the wheels definitely were up in the air.
Well, Ormsby told us that he just flat went up there to go for it. I mean, he anticipated the light.
Yeah, I don't think I did. I saw yellow.
Flat left front wheel from the wheel stand? Or?
Yeah, they're flat. Both of them are come down pretty hard.
Kind of like an airplane with a sloppy landing, huh?
Well, I was trying to get it down. I tried to feather back into it, but I didn't do a very good job of it.
So Gary Beck unknowingly red lights, but the wheel stand might have spelled his demise anyway. And I think when Gary has a chance to see our tape, he'll understand why he red lighted. It wasn't the lane. Let's go to Brock.
Well, Gene slipped into the finals with another red light. Both Ormsby and Beck foul out, so it's you and Connie now, huh?
Well, I didn't know that Beck red lighted, but I did see the wheel stand is right beside me. I said, boy, I hope that thing comes down straight instead of turns over here the way we are, and I knew he was in trouble, so I stayed in it trying to get a decent run, see how the car would run.
Well, the car ran good. Have you, it looks like the crew's not too concerned. Looks like you didn't hurt anything.
Well, we're real pleased. We made a few changes, and maybe we're going the right way. That's the quickest we've run all weekend.
You got to feel good about it. Good luck.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Wheel stands, blower explosions, you name it, we have experienced it at the Quaker State North Star Nationals. The Top Fuel final, Connie Kalitta versus...
Cars here in the semifinals at the Quaker State North Star Nationals. That is Paul Smith and Fred Castronovo's beautiful funny. He's never run better in his life. And up against him will be John Collins, the quick qualifier here at Brainerd. Steve?
I'll tell you what, if Paul Smith wins this race and gets into the finals, he will come out of this car at the other end without even opening the roof hatch. He'll stand straight up through it. It will be the thrill of his life.
Well, same for John Collins. Neither of these guys have ever won a major NHRA event, so this is going to be a thrill for either one of these guys.
Well, John Collins has won lots of races, divisional titles, regional titles, but the big NHRA national event has eluded him. If he can get by Paul Smith, he'll at least make the final round and have a shot at one.
Well, we saw both of these cars being worked on. Remember, Collins is carrying a brand new, fresh motor in that one. Castronovo's car, well, the same engine that carried Paul Smith to victory in the second round. So this is going to be a good matchup. Paul Smith, as you said earlier, Steve, drives them as hard as anybody does, but just hasn't had quite the luck with some of the other competitors.
Oh, Paul Smith, he's seen it all. He's wrapped them around trees. He's exploded them, flipped them upside down. You name it, that man has been through it. John Collins in the far lane. Paul Smith near lane. Let's watch the lead. It's Collins away first. Oh, it's all over. He'll have to wait another day to win his first national event for Paul Smith. John Collins, new motor and all. A nice, safe 592, 246 miles an hour.
For Paul Smith, it was over when he lit the tires up just off the line, and that was the end of it for him. Okay, we're back in Gene Snow's pit area right now, and they're doing some work on the headers. It doesn't look like really critical repairs being made, but they are going to make sure that that machine is absolutely ready in tip-top condition because they're going against Connie Kalitta, the quickest guy in the place.
I'll tell you how organized NHRA is, Brock. That is their official welder. They call him Team Torch. He travels to all the NHRA national events.
Well, hold the acetylene in Connie's pit. They don't need any welding done at this point. This is routine maintenance. They're adjusting the blower belt. They've disassembled the engine, checked the crank, the pistons, and the valve train, and then put it all back together again. So things are basically under control in Connie's pit. Now, let's go down to the other end of the track with John Collins.
Well, John Collins, you needed a little luck to tune up the new power plant, and you got it. He went up in smoke over the center line. You ran in the 590s.
I run a 590 that time? Boy, that's not going to be too good against Kenny in the final, though, is it?
Gives you a chance, gives you a baseline anyway, doesn't it?
Well, I'll tell you what, Steve. The motor that we put in the car was different compression, okay? And we made a couple adjustments, and it definitely wasn't enough.
I notice you're assuming Kenny Bernstein's going to be in the final. He's still over the starting line.
I thought they'd already run the final. See, we were having such a thrash back in the pits changing engines that you're right.
Very well could be, though. Let's go back up to the starting line and see if Kenny Bernstein can make the final.
Well, Steve, John Collins' remarks are an example of the kind of awe that the other competitors hold Kenny Bernstein in at this particular point in his career. He's running so strong that it's really presumed that he's going to blow away Jim Head. But I tell you what, Jim Head isn't going to beat himself. You've got to go up there and beat him. So it isn't over yet.
Well, Kenny Bernstein still has nightmares about the final round last year at the U.S. Nationals when he smoked the tires and Head beat him. They're having a problem starting this car, Brock. You can't presume anything. The motor does not want to run. It has died again. That's twice. Look at the activity. Everybody hollering and yelling. They're trying to figure out what's wrong. They're going to again try. Now, they'll squirt a little fuel in that fuel injector. Let's see if it comes to life. That's Dale Armstrong in the white sweatshirt trying to get this motor alive. Now, it may be a fuel pump problem. That happens quite often. They'll break the shaft of the fuel pump, and all it'll do is run on the front. Oh, it died again. Jim Head, meanwhile, has completed his burnout, is backing up, doing things at his own pace. Now, Bernstein does get it lit. He may not even have time for a burnout, Brock.
Well, this is a fascinating confrontation and exactly what we talked about. This is Jim Head's strategy. It's worked before. He waits for the other guy to make the mistake. And right now, the Titanic team of Kenny Bernstein, which hadn't made a mistake in recent memory, is having horrible problems. And Jim Head, with his 590s, looks like, unless things go really well for Bernstein in the next couple of seconds, he's on his way to the finals.
Imagine how frustrated Kenny is, trapped in that car, watching Jim Head single his way into the final round. Jim Head doesn't have the performance. He has got the luck. There again, you could have predicted this, Brock. Head's not going to run it all the way through. He'll save his equipment for John Collins. And that's the matchup. Collins versus Head in the finals of Funny Car at the NHRA Quaker State North Star Nationals.
And in the meantime, Kenny Bernstein and Dale Armstrong left at the altar. We'll be back with more from Brainerd right after this. Of the day at the Quaker State North Star Nationals when Kenny Bernstein failed to fire. Let's go to Steve to see if we can find out the source of the problem.
Well, just a few moments ago, crew chief Dale Armstrong started Kenny Bernstein's car, and it ran as it's supposed to, and it would have gone to the starting line if what problem had been found up there, Dale?
Something malfunctioned in the magneto. We just came back and went through a series of elimination on some other things and finally stuck another magneto in it, and it fired right up. So
the magneto being the ignition system on the car.
Yeah, it provides a spark for the cylinders.
The difference between a magneto and, say, a passenger car ignition, it generates its own high voltage power rather than the battery would in my car or your street car.
Yeah, that's right. It just, as you spin it, it creates its own energy.
A frustrating way to lose.
Yeah, it is. It is. But it could happen, I guess, at worst time.
Still talking to you.
Yeah, it wants to buzz now.
Okay, the Pro Stock Final. And what a race this is going to be. Bob Glidden versus the youngster Bruce Allen.
Interestingly enough, Brock, Bob Glidden has won 43 NHRA titles, more than any other driver, but has never won here at the North Star Nationals. And standing in his way is that lightning-quick Camaro driven by Bruce Allen, the Rear-End Morrison car from Arlington, Texas. Now, of course, the experience edge goes to Glidden by 43 national events and 300 rounds of racing won. Bruce Allen, brand new in this car. But, you know, Rear-End Morrison told me they selected him not so much for driving ability, but for his character and his good sense. We'll teach him to drive, they said. Well, I hope he's learned quick because he's up against a master. It is Glidden away first. It is Glidden with a significant hole shot. Bob Glidden to the Ford. Bruce Allen Chevrolet. This one goes to Ford and Thunderbird at 7.60. You talk about a happy crew. Their first ever North Star victory.
183 miles an hour, but I'll tell you what, not all that far behind. With a 761 was Bruce Allen. Reaction time, a little bit to Glidden, only by a few hundredths, but from there on in, it was Glidden all the way. The crew cheering him on. Bruce Allen seems to have lit the tires up just a little bit off the line. That could have been a factor in the race, but it was Glidden holding that lead and winning it by about a half a car length. A terrific victory. Win number 44 for the champion.
So Bob Glidden polishes off the competition here at Brainerd with a final round, 7:60 elapsed time, your third event win of the year. Good job.
About time, Steve. I don't know what happened in the final. I don't know what Bruce ran. I know the competition's been tough getting this far. We had to run Gordy Rivera first round. Butch the second round, and Johnson in the semis. We had a tough road today, and I'm glad we won this thing.
Well, you also had the better reaction time. I know that pleases you.
Well, Bruce, you know, he came into this thing and he started out killing us all, and now he's just getting a little bit of payback, and he'll survive it, I'm sure.
Congratulations to you, Ed, and the whole family.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
And we'll second that. Congratulations to Bob Glidden as he shakes hands with Bruce Allen, a young man who gave him all he asked for in that final run. Okay, Steve, it's funny car time. Head versus Collins. Interesting matchup.
Oh, Brock, I said if I was a gambling man earlier, I wouldn't bet on this race. I think it's a pick-em deal. Head has got that consistency, maybe not that quick, but he does the same thing every time, and he seems to have a lot of luck on his side as well. Collins was the low qualifier. He had a chance to tune up that motor. I rate it. This is a pick-em.
Well, Head, as we've said so many times, we've seen him run. It's just like a clock. He gets down there, not spectacular, but he doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't red light, and he doesn't get the car sideways. Doesn't like the tires a lot either.
A perfectly even lead, both cars together. Collins is smoking the tires. Collins gets close to that outside wall, shuts it off, and Jim Head wins his third NHRA national event. First the U.S. Nationals last year, the Cajuns this year, and now he can add the Quaker State North Star Nationals to his press kit. The leave off the starting line, identical reaction times to the thousandths of a second. So no one had an advantage there. They are just fender to fender. Collins' tires will start to smoke. Already a sign of that. Now, he's a good driver. He's on and off that throttle, trying to get it sorted out, but it's much too sideways to correct. Jim Head wins it.
Well, congratulations, Jim.
Thank you.
You had a little bit of worry before you got into this thing with a broken camshaft, but it all worked out.
Yeah, it all worked out well.
How about the race? Tell me about it.
Well, things started real bad for us all weekend, so those are the ones that you do well in, I guess.
Jim, Collins went up and he got way over on the right side off course there. Did you know you had him when could you see him, or did you left about together, I understand?
I never saw him. In the funny cars, especially this particular body style, it's real difficult to see somebody, and I didn't see him at all.
But you knew he wasn't ahead of you.
I definitely knew he wasn't ahead of me at the finish line.
Okay, well, congratulations. We're delighted.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and now let's go to Steve with a runner-up.
Well, thank you, Brock, but unfortunately we don't see that big smile that graced the face of Jim Head here. A very disappointed John Collins when those tires let loose, you knew.
Yeah, as soon as the tires smoked right at the end of the concrete pad, the car, again, got out of the groove, and I could see the nose of Jim's car. Well, I had to shut mine off because I seen the concrete guardrail coming up too quick, and it was just a situation that I could have either hung it out a little further, but I felt that that was maximum right there as far as me going any further without coming in contact with the guardrail.
You know, taking nothing away from Jim Head, he had an awful lot of luck today, and but I wonder sometimes his game plan is so conservative that he makes you beat yourself.
Well, and again, right there, we beat ourselves, you know, out on the track by overpowering the track. But, hey, he's got a lot of luck, and he's a good racer.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't have a dream tonight about setting that clutch a little softer. Huh?
I think you're right on the clutch. We were a little off in the clutch, but, hey, Head's a good racer. He is the best man today.
Well, a great effort, and again, congratulations on a new track record and being that #1 qualifier.
Hey, thanks, Steve. We appreciate all the help.
A class act, John Collins, as he goes down to defeat here after setting quick time. Back in the Coletta pit, they may be wondering the same thing. They were quick qualifiers. Is there an upset in store in Top Fuel? We'll find
here in Brainerd, Minnesota, is coming to a very fast conclusion. 2 cars remain. The finalists in Top Fuel Eliminator. Connie Coletta, the #1 qualifier, the man that disposed of Don Garlits in round #1, up against Gene Snow. Now, this is Gene's best effort in a long time. As I said before, Buck, he has never won a Top Fuel title. Lots of funny car races years ago. He's got a shot at Connie Coletta right now, and I guarantee you the Snowman, with all his savvy, he is up to the task here.
Well, it's going to be a mighty interesting confrontation. You certainly can't take experience away from either one of these guys. They've been in hundreds and hundreds of big-time drag races, so they're plenty cool, and their poise is almost 100%. As we watch them finally getting ready to... Look at this, Steve. There's troubles with Snow's car.
A fuel leak in one of the injector nozzles, but an alert crewman had a wrench in his pocket and gets it tightened up. It is still dribbling just a little bit, but that's not going to hurt anything, and Buster's not about to shut them off. They're the last 2 cars of the day. If they hold the track down, who cares at this point? Buster gets the crewman out of it and says, don't worry about it, man. I'll handle this. This is my territory. In the near lane, Connie, the bounty hunter, Coletta. in the far lane, the Snowman, Gene Snow. Those nicknames go back years and years. It is the Snowman off the mark first, the black car, but here comes Kalitta. Connie Kalitta by a full car length, and this young crew just loves it. That's 2 national event victories in a row. Kalitta at 5:52, 260 miles an hour to Snow's 5:63.
Well, Gene Snow gave it the old college drive, but it just wasn't enough. Perfect reaction time on his part, though.
Yep, you're right, Rock. You see him off the mark first. Let's see where Kalitta pulls up even.
Looks like a half-track pass right here, and then he just drove on by to a relatively easy victory. A good race, though. Well done by both men, a matter of simple horsepower.
You want to see a Michigan smile? There it is. Another 260-mile-an-hour blast for Connie Kalitta. Second national event victory in a row. Good going.
Car's running dynamite. The boys are doing a hell of a job making it work.
5:52.
5:52, that's great.
Was there any problems up on the starting line? Any problems along the way at all?
No, Snow had a little fuel leak, I think, and that was about it.
Feels good after all these years, does it? Get a win streak, sort of.
It's nice. I'll tell you what, it's been a while coming, but we've got to straighten out. I hope we can just carry it for a while.
A lot of the guys are saying, uh-oh, suddenly it's Connie Kalitta we've got to catch, not Don Garlits. How true is that?
No, he's plenty strong. I'll tell you, he'll be ready at Indy. We know all that. I know he'll be there, and he'll be strong.
All right, as a happy crew, including son Scott Kalitta, mob the veteran from Michigan. Let's go to Brock Yates with runner-up Gene Snow.
Well, thanks, Steve. As Gene Snow looks over an engine that probably was not running right up to snuff. Gene's super drag race. One of those things you hate to see anybody lose it.
Yeah, I knew there was something wrong back there, and, you know, what are you going to do? Just give it your best shot.
Well, you sure did. You were right with him all the way.
It was a good, close race. I was surprised I was right there.
Could you feel the motor was down a little bit?
Maybe a little bit. It went 255 something for me, which is pretty good.
Not too bad. We're sorry. Congratulations, though, on putting on a great show.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, that man truly is a gentleman. And Connie Kalitta truly is a champion at the Quaker State North Star Nationals, winning the top fuel title over Gene Snow. In funny car, Jim Head. He earned it. He had to beat the #1 qualifier to get the title. In Pro Stock, it was Bob Glidden over the Chevrolet of Rear and Morrison. For Ed Bruce and Brock Yates, I'm Steve Evans. So long from Minnesota and the North Star Nationals.
The executive producer for American Sports Cavalcade is Harvey M. Palish. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by the Style Auto World Championship Team, the nation's premier source of fast lane fashion. Style Auto, the champion's choice.